Good morning, everyone. 7:06 this Monday morning. Coming up, we've got your Oilers Mystery Player of the Day clue. You got to enter that. You've got to listen to Oilers Now, which now starts at 4 o'clock here on 6:30 CHED, and he will give you the answer. And if you know it, well, he won't give you the answer. You have to give him the answer. You call in after I give you the clue, and you could win an absolutely awesome staycation. It's a night at the JW Marriott. There is a dinner before and a reception afterwards with Bob Stauffer and special guests. So gosh knows who that's going to be. He's got quite the Rolodex. So stay tuned for that clue for the mystery player of the day. Hey, when your kid walks through the door after school, whether they walk home from school or maybe they get into your car after you pick them up, or they get off the bus and they're walking through the door, are they a little grumpy? Are they maybe a little prickly? Like a little porcupine? Did they have a bad day? I know as a mom, I would go, what can I do to help? What happened? Did something really terrible happen at school? Not usually. And usually when I ask them about it, or I try to soothe, as mama bears usually do, it can make it worse. So why does it happen day after day? And maybe it doesn't happen every day, but I think it's frequent enough that you definitely notice it. Tammy Schamuhn is a psychologist and co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology, and she joins us on the line. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning.
So these after-school meltdowns, they are a thing.
Yeah, and there's actually a name for it. It's called after-school restraint collapse. We named this in the psychology world a few years ago when we noticed, especially in the fall, that kids have these big kind of implosions or explosions that happen after school, and parents get really concerned because are they getting bullied at school? Is something wrong? And it turns out it's a really common experience with most kids, especially in the first few months after school is kind of resumed after the summer break.
So it's called a restraint collapse. What does that mean?
After school restraint collapse. So you think of a child's emotions kind of like a pressure cooker, and the pressure mounts all day. Like, think of all the rules they have to follow. They have these expectations. They're navigating social nuances. There's high amounts of sensory overload. If we think of all the fluorescent lighting and all the bright colors in the classroom. And some kids are really sensitive to being around crowds of people, especially our really introverted kids. So they have all these expectations put on them all day and all of this stimulation. And then when they come home and they're in their safe place and they see their parents and they love their parents, and they just kind of, it just finally, it's over the top, and that something has to give. So when they have the meltdown, that's the release. And that's actually the body releasing cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So the explosion, the after-school restraint collapse, is a body's way of actually healing from the stimulation that's happened throughout the day. And that's how the body starts to release that pent-up kind of energy and that goes on in the body.
But as a parent, you either I know you talked about this, you get concerned about something happening, or you get angry because they talk back. They're not pleasant to be around. How should a parent handle it?
Well, I think first and foremost, think about you being at work all day. And you come home after 8 hours in the office, and you've had all of these reports due, your boss is kind of being a jerk, and maybe there's some colleagues you're not getting along with. If you were to come home and your spouse is like, you need to keep working, like, how are you going to handle that? Probably you're going to be irritable, right? And the problem is parents get their kids home, and immediately they want to throw them into more structure, like a structured activity like dance or hockey or something, or they're like, get your homework done now so I don't have to fight with you later. And that seems to make it worse. Or asking kids too many questions. So I think kids are play-based, they're not language-based. They're part of their brain that's involved with language is highly underdeveloped. So the more we talk at them, actually the worse it gets. So if we think about what kids might need, I think their bodies need, either depending on the age, some kids, and you have to know your child, some kids need quiet time, others need movement and play, especially our boys who have been asked to sit in a desk all day when they need a lot of movement. So my number one thing I do is kick kids outside. Like they need to go outside, they need fresh air, and they don't need a lot of structure. They need to climb trees and ride their bikes and jump on the trampoline. Anything that involves laughter and movement is going to help reduce those the meltdowns, because it's going to release something called GABA. It's a neurotransmitter produced in the stomach. So when kids are moving, that basically turns off the part of the brain that's involved with stress, if that makes sense. They also need something like a healthy snack, like something to refuel their body, because their body's under a lot of stress. And anything that's really healthy to put in their tummy is actually going to help produce a neurotransmitter called serotonin that is actually going to help calm their emotions. So we're going to be careful about, using a lot of preservatives and sugars and refined carbohydrates. Those things actually cause inflammation, which can cause the mood to actually go further south, if that makes sense. And we don't put a lot of energy on homework. My goodness, they've been at work, basically. School's work for them all day. So that is not the time that I would be concerned about homework. We want to reduce the structure, but add connection and add movement. And I know for your kids who are a little older, especially our really introverted ones, like my kids need to go in their room, and my older two who are a little more sensitive and quiet, they need to go in their rooms and be away from everybody for a while. And they need to be left alone for about an hour. Don't talk to them. They get a snack, they go hide, and then they're ready to kind of enter the world again after about an hour of being in there.
So what do you say to them? Do you say anything? Do you say hi, or do you just let them do their own thing?
Honestly, if you have a really good connection with your kids, it's usually in the car when we don't have to make eye contact. I will say to them, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? And what's something you're looking forward to tonight? That's it. That's the only thing I would ask. And that's been a routine for my kids and I. And then I've got my youngest loves to cuddle, so he'll get a snack and he wants to sit on the couch with me. And it's up to him whether or not he wants to share about his day. But I know if you ask them, how was your day? They're going to say, fine, good. Like they won't give you a lot of information at that point. They're so overwhelmed and overloaded at that point. I don't think they really want to delve into it, but you can try that strategy. What was the best part? What was the worst part? And what's something you're looking forward for our family to be doing tonight? So maybe it's like when reading a book tonight, or I want to go for a walk as a family, or I just want to, hide in my room, like whatever that is. But knowing they just came home from work, that's the kids' version of work, and they need time to decompress. And if they have the meltdown, that's okay. That is the body's way of getting rid of those high levels of cortisol, those stress hormones that have been building all day long. And the tantrum is actually the answer to the problem. It's a solution. It's just not very pleasant for us as parents. And I realize that. But at the same time, we know from a biological perspective what happens when kids find their tears is that's a really healthy thing, and that's how they often have to kind of release it.
Is it okay for them just to go into their room and be on their phone?
So that's one thing I would say with my kids that now, maybe a 16 or 17, you've got a teen who's quite a bit older. I prefer to go no screens. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have screens, but I'd introduce it a little later, because we know screens do the opposite of play, the opposite of outdoors, the opposite of connection. They actually build up further cortisol in the body. So they love it because they're getting a chemical called dopamine, which but we need a whole other conversation about that. But in the large amounts, it's very addictive. In small amounts, it's healthy. So it's very addictive, so it feels good. But what's left with is the second you go to take it away as a parent, your meltdown that you would have gotten anyway is going to be 5 times bigger. Mm-hmm. So I would say yes, but give it some time. Once they've moved, once they've played, once they've journaled, listen to music. That's great. That's actually what my 16-year-old does. Is she just blasts music into her room, and we give her not her phone. We actually have an MP3 player for her, so it's not a phone, but so she can still listen to Spotify, but she's not sitting scrolling on a phone.
How often do these happen, and if they increase, should we be concerned?
It really depends on the child. My kids don't have them. I mean, they're 16, 10, and 8. It's rare now, but when they were little, that was really big, right? We noticed them a lot, especially that first month of school. So we kind of have a formula now. We know each kid, we know what they need after school. So we just stick to it. And for the most part, like it'll happen, once every 2-3 weeks, this will happen. But especially kindergarten, first grade, second grade, we almost expect it. But as they, go throughout the school year, they tend to get smaller once kids adjust. But, if this is chronic every single day, like it's every day, then we start to be a little bit curious and we wonder how long they last for too. I think there's a difference between a child having a quick 5-10 minute cry, even 15 minutes, and it going on for an hour. So one of the things I'm always looking at is talking with the teacher and just saying, like, are you noticing anything, at school? How are, peer relationships? Are they playing with kids at recess? Can they focus? Are they having a hard time completing tasks? So we're not panicking. We're just curious and open. Like, what are the teachers observing, right? And kids who are having those really, really big meltdowns every single day, and maybe there's some school refusal attached to it, like they don't want to go, I'm going to query peers. I'm going to query, are they getting along with their teacher? Are there, issues with friends? And also, is the class, are they having we do it's called a sensory profile. We want to know if maybe this kiddo has some sensory sensitivities, right? So for instance, my middle is highly sensitive, which is just a temperament. It's not a disorder. And when she was little, the noise really bothered her at school. So we got her some noise canceling headphones that when she was working in class, the sounds of the classroom didn't bother her so much. So, we start to figure out, like, is my kiddo sensitive to sound? Is it light? Is it, do they need more movement? So maybe they need more movement breaks at school. Without knowing this particular child, I couldn't tell you, but we get to know our kids at home. Do loud noises bug them? Do big crowds of people bother them? So maybe when they're doing work, they need to go to a corner of the class where it's nice and quiet. And so we're having these conversations with the school, with the teacher, hopefully not defensively, just saying, I'm noticing this. And just because a child's not acting out at school doesn't mean they're not struggling. And that's really important to note. Kids who, are well-adjusted can still struggle. They're just really good at regulating throughout the day, but then they fall apart when they get home. So that's where often I default to, do they have some sensory sensitivities that we need to kind of look at.
An important
not the teacher. Yeah.
An important conversation. Thanks so much, Tammy. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Tammy Schamuhn is a psychologist and co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology.